I should have known. I should have realized long ago that no matter what I did, no matter how much I tried, I would never be part of this family. But for years, I told myself that things would change, that maybe one day, Evelyn Hastings would finally look at me with something other than thinly veiled disdain. That maybe Daniel, my husband, would stop making excuses for her. But people don't change. And I should have known. The moment that finally shattered the illusion happened on a Saturday evening, at yet another Hastings family dinner, the kind where I was expected to show up, smile politely, and remain invisible. The long dining table stretched before me, set with fine china and crystal glasses that probably cost more than my old apartment. The Hastings estate was a grand, cold mansion, the kind of place that belonged in a magazine rather than a home. Everything about it, its high ceilings, gleaming chandeliers, and carefully curated floral arrangements, was meant to impress. It was a house meant to be admired, not lived in. And just like the house, Evelyn Hastings only valued things that were meant to be admired. Dinner was already in progress when I entered the room. As usual, nobody waited for me. The moment I stepped in, I felt the shift in the air. The small, almost imperceptible change in conversation. The way people carefully avoided my gaze. There was no seat left beside Daniel. Instead, the only open chair was at the farthest end of the table, an afterthought, just like me. I swallowed hard and sat down. No one acknowledged my presence. Not Evelyn, not Richard, my father-in-law, not Daniel's perfect sister, Charlotte, not even Daniel himself. Conversation carried on as if I weren't there. "The charity gala was an absolute success," Charlotte was saying, her voice smooth and confident. "I was interviewed for the society report afterward. The editor told me she adored my speech." Evelyn beamed, pride evident in the way she looked at her daughter. "Of course she did, darling. You were born for this." I reached for the glass of water in front of me, forcing my expression to remain neutral. Charlotte had given that speech word for word from a draft I had written for her. She had asked me for help weeks ago, claiming she had been too busy to prepare anything meaningful, and like an idiot, I had helped her. Not a single mention. Daniel, sitting beside Charlotte, laughed at something she said. I waited, hoping he'd at least glance my way, maybe say something, acknowledge me in some way. He didn't. It was as if I truly did not exist. I tried to engage. I really did. "Charlotte, that's wonderful. What part of the speech did they like best?" Charlotte barely spared me a glance, then continued talking as if I hadn't spoken. Evelyn, who had been sipping her wine, finally turned to me with that polite, brittle smile she always wore when she was about to say something cruel in the most elegant way possible. "Lisa, dear," she said smoothly, "it's lovely that you try to take an interest in these things, but charity galas are quite different from the world you come from. The world I come from." She said it as if I were some stray dog Daniel had dragged in from the streets. Daniel didn't say a word. He didn't defend me, didn't laugh awkwardly and change the subject. He just let it happen. I put my fork down, my appetite completely gone. I didn't even feel anger anymore. Just emptiness. But the final blow came when dessert arrived. Evelyn's birthday was coming up, and there was talk of throwing a grand celebration, the kind of high-profile event that would be covered in magazines. "Daniel," Evelyn said, placing a perfectly manicured hand over her son's, "you'll bring a suitable guest, of course." Daniel hesitated. I saw it, the quick flicker of panic in his eyes. "Of course, Mother," he said carefully. Evelyn smiled, and I realized something then. She hadn't meant me. She didn't expect Daniel to bring his wife. I felt something snap inside me. I placed my napkin on the table, stood up, and smiled. "I think I've lost my appetite," I said, voice even. I turned and walked out, ignoring the stunned silence behind me. No one followed me, not even Daniel. And that was when I knew. I was done waiting for this family to love me. I was done waiting for Daniel to defend me. And I was done being invisible. I didn't cry. Not that night. Not after walking out of that suffocating dinner. After realizing, truly realizing, that I meant nothing to them. Instead, I wandered through the cold, quiet halls of the Hastings estate, my heels clicking against the polished marble floor. The chandeliers cast an elegant glow overhead, but it felt distant, hollow, like everything else in this house. I should have gone back to the guest room. I should have packed a bag, taken a deep breath, and figured out what to do next. But instead, I found myself in the library. It was Evelyn's domain, a grand two-story space lined with books she probably never read, a large mahogany desk in the center, and a fireplace that had been burning low. I had always loved libraries, but in this house, even books felt unwelcoming. I ran my fingers over the leather-bound spines, breathing in the scent of aged paper. I needed something, anything, to ground me, to distract me from the dull ache in my chest. And that was when I heard it. Voices. Low, urgent voices filtering in through the partially open door to Evelyn's private study. I froze. Evelyn and Richard, whispering. I knew I should leave, but something in their tone, the clipped urgency, the nervous edge, made me hesitate. Then I heard Daniel's name. I moved closer, pressing myself against the doorframe, heart hammering. Has no idea, Richard was saying, his voice tight. He thinks he's one of us, Evelyn. And as long as he never finds out, we don't have a problem. Of course he'll never find out, Evelyn snapped. We've made sure of that. You think I would let our entire family legacy rest in the hands of an outsider? I felt my stomach drop. An outsider. She wasn't talking about me. Richard exhaled sharply. If anyone ever digs into the records, they won't, Evelyn interrupted, voice sharp. The adoption files are sealed. No one will question anything unless someone gives them a reason to. Adoption. I pressed a hand to my mouth. They were talking about Daniel. I closed my eyes, my breath coming in short, shallow gasps. Daniel wasn't their biological son. Everything, their arrogance, their obsession with family bloodlines, their thinly veiled disgust at my presence, was built on a lie. And they had spent years treating me like I was the imposter. My pulse pounded in my ears. I won't let anyone take what's ours, Richard, Evelyn was saying, especially not that girl. That girl. Me! The air left my lungs in a quiet, bitter laugh. Evelyn Hastings had spent years belittling me for not being good enough for her family. She had humiliated me, excluded me, treated me like an inconvenience. And all this time, the perfect Hastings bloodline she had been protecting didn't even exist. I should have felt vindicated. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt something colder. Because now I understood. Evelyn wasn't just cruel, she was terrified. She had built her entire life on a carefully crafted illusion of wealth and legacy, and she would do anything to keep that illusion intact, which meant, if this secret ever got out, it would destroy her. I stepped away from the door, my mind spinning. I had power. For the first time since marrying into this family, I had something they didn't. A way to hurt them the way they had hurt me. And I was going to use it, but not yet. Not until everyone was watching. I spent the next 2 weeks playing the role of the perfect wife. I smiled when Evelyn spoke to me, pretended not to notice when Charlotte barely acknowledged my presence, and nodded politely whenever Daniel dismissed me with the usual, "Just ignore them, Lisa." I ignored them, all right. But only because I had something bigger planned. Evelyn's 60th birthday gala was set to be the social event of the season. She had invited over 200 guests, including politicians, CEOs, and high society elites. It was meant to be a grand showcase of the Hastings family's prestige, an event that would solidify her image as the matriarch of a legacy worth envying. She had no idea it would be the night she lost everything. The ballroom at the Hastings estate was breathtaking that evening. Golden chandeliers bathed the room in a warm glow, reflecting off the crystal glasses and silver-plated dinnerware adorning the perfectly arranged tables. A grand piano played softly in the corner, blending seamlessly with the quiet hum of laughter and conversation. Evelyn stood at the center of it all, radiating power and poise in an emerald green gown, her diamond necklace gleaming under the lights. I watched her from across the room, swirling the champagne in my glass, waiting. I had spent days preparing for this moment. Every little detail had been meticulously planned. The final, beautiful act of my invisibility was to ensure that no one saw me coming. The evening proceeded like clockwork. Elegant speeches, polite applause, and extravagant toasts, all designed to celebrate the woman who believed she had built an untouchable empire. And then, it was time for the final toast of the night. Daniel, standing beside Evelyn, raised his glass with a practiced smile. "To my mother," he announced, his voice filled with adoration Evelyn didn't deserve. "A woman whose dedication to family and legacy has shaped all of us." Applause, smiles, laughter. My turn. I stepped forward, champagne glass in hand, my heart hammering against my ribs. "If I may," I said, my voice even. Evelyn's lips pressed into a thin, forced smile. She didn't like being interrupted. Daniel glanced at me, clearly startled. I never spoke at these things, but tonight I had something to say. I turned to Evelyn, offering my most sincere smile. "I wanted to give you a gift tonight, Mother," I said smoothly, my voice carrying through the room. Something truly unforgettable. Curiosity flickered in her eyes, though I saw the hint of suspicion creeping in. "Play the video," I said. The projector, which had been used earlier for a slideshow of Evelyn's greatest moments, now lit up again. But this time, it wasn't playing a montage of staged family photos. It was playing the truth. The room fell into complete silence. On the screen, Evelyn and Richard's hushed conversation played in perfect clarity. "Has no idea. He thinks he's one of us, Evelyn." "Of course, he'll never find out." "You think I would let our entire family legacy rest in the hands of an outsider?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Guests leaned in, eyes widening. Daniel's face drained of color. I turned back to Evelyn, watching as her carefully curated world collapsed in real time. Her fingers dug into her champagne glass, knuckles turning white. "Turn that off!" she hissed. But it kept playing. "The adoption files are sealed. No one will question anything unless someone gives them a reason to." Murmurs spread like wildfire. Someone in the back whispered the word that Evelyn had spent decades trying to avoid. "Adopted?" Daniel turned to Evelyn, his entire body stiff. "What the hell is this?" Evelyn's face was a mask of frozen horror. "Daniel, darling." "No," he said, stepping back. You lied to me? My whole life?" Her hand reached for his, but he pulled away. And then the whispers turned into something worse. "They paid off officials to cover it up? So they've been lying about their family legacy for decades? This is going to be a PR nightmare." Evelyn realized it then. The Hastings name, her entire empire, was crumbling, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. She turned on me, rage radiating off her in waves. I lifted my champagne glass, smiling. "I just wanted to make sure everyone knew the truth, Evelyn," I said softly. "You were always so proud of your bloodline, after all." I took a slow sip, letting her own hypocrisy sink in. She had always acted like I was the outsider. But in the end, she was the fraud. And now everyone knew it. The silence in the ballroom was deafening. Evelyn stood frozen at the head of the table, her carefully crafted facade shattering before everyone's eyes. Her grip on her champagne glass was so tight I thought it might break. Daniel looked at her like he was seeing a stranger. The video had stopped playing, but the damage was done. All around us, whispers and murmurs spread like wildfire. "Did you hear that? So they lied about their family history? The Hastings name is built on a complete fraud." Evelyn turned toward the staff managing the event, her voice sharp and cutting. "Turn that projector off, now!" But it was already too late. I watched her crumble in real time, and I felt nothing. For years, I had longed for her approval. I had endured her disdain, her cruel remarks, her constant reminders that I didn't belong. But now, she was the one who didn't belong. I stepped forward, placing my empty champagne glass on the table with a deliberate clink. "You did this on purpose," Evelyn spat, her voice low and furious. I tilted my head. Did I? Daniel's gaze snapped to me, realization settling over his face like a cold wave. You knew, he whispered. I turned to him, unfazed. Yes, Daniel, I knew. Evelyn let out a sharp, humorless laugh. You pathetic little— Careful, I interrupted, my voice calm but firm. There are still quite a few people watching. Her nostrils flared. For the first time in her life, Evelyn Hastings had no control over the situation. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she and Daniel could hear. You spent years treating me like I wasn't good enough, I murmured. You made sure I felt small, unwanted, replaceable. I let the words sink in. And all this time, your son is the one who doesn't belong here. Evelyn flinched. I smiled. You humiliated me, Evelyn, I continued, so I thought it was only fair to return the favor. Her hands shook with rage. I turned my attention to Daniel. He still looked pale, his jaw tight, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. You had this information, he said slowly, as if piecing everything together. And instead of telling me, you used it to embarrass my mother? I laughed softly, shaking my head. Daniel, you don't get to act like the victim here. His eyes snapped to mine. You let them treat me like garbage for years, I said, my voice steady. You watched it happen and did nothing. And now, the one time I decide to fight back, you're upset? Daniel exhaled sharply, dragging a hand through his hair. This isn't the same thing, Lisa. I let out a breath. No, it's not. Because unlike you, I didn't just stand by and let it happen. His jaw tensed. I reached into my purse, pulling out a crisp white envelope and setting it on the table between us. What's this? He asked warily. Divorce papers, I said simply. Silence. Daniel stared at the envelope as if it were a bomb waiting to explode. You're leaving me? I almost laughed at the disbelief in his voice. Daniel, I said quietly, you left me a long time ago. His lips parted, but he had no argument to make. For the first time in years, I saw it, the realization sinking in. He had never defended me, never chosen me, never stood up for me. And now, he was finally facing the consequences. I turned back to Evelyn, whose face was an unreadable mask. You always said I wasn't good enough to be a Hastings, I told her. And you were right. I was too good for this family. And with that, I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I didn't stop walking until I was outside. The cold night air hit my skin like a cleansing wave, washing away the suffocating weight of the ballroom. Behind me, I could still hear the murmurs, the hushed voices of high society elites dissecting the scandal that had just unfolded. I had destroyed the Hastings family's perfect image, and I felt lighter than I had in years. A valet approached hesitantly. Ma'am, do you need a car? I nodded, slipping him a tip. Just call me a taxi. He looked surprised. Not the Hastings car? I smiled faintly. No, I don't belong to them anymore. I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, my bare feet propped against the railing as I sipped my coffee. The ocean stretched before me, endless and free. I had left everything behind. The mansion, the Hastings wealth, the suffocating expectations of a life I never wanted. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel lost. I felt found. My phone buzzed beside me. Daniel. I let it ring twice before finally answering. Lisa, he breathed, his voice urgent. I've been trying to reach you. I know, I said simply. Silence. Then a shaky exhale. Look, Don't, I interrupted. Don't apologize. We both know you're not calling because you're sorry. He hesitated. I don't know how to fix this. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the weight of his words settle. You can't, I said. Daniel inhaled sharply. Lisa, please, just come back. We can talk. I smiled sadly, staring out at the waves. I don't want to come back, Daniel. Silence. You really mean that, don't you? His voice was barely a whisper. Yes, I said. And this time, I meant it. Sarah Hastings Daniel's cousin, called me out of nowhere. "Lisa," she said breathlessly, "you won't believe what's happening." I arched an eyebrow, switching my phone to speaker as I folded laundry. "Try me." "Evelyn and Richard are getting divorced. He left her after the fallout." I blinked. That was unexpected. "She's being blacklisted from social events," Sarah continued. "People don't want to be associated with the Hastings name anymore. Sponsors have pulled out of her charities. It's over for her." I leaned against my counter, digesting her words. Evelyn Hastings had spent her life building an empire, and in one night, I had burned it to the ground. Sarah hesitated before adding, "And Daniel, he's selling the estate, says he doesn't want to live in the past anymore." I swallowed. "Good for him." "Are you okay?" she asked softly. I smiled, really smiled, for the first time in a long time. I've never been better. I stood on the shore, my feet sinking into the warm sand. The wind played with my hair, carrying the scent of salt and freedom. I had a new job, a new home, a life that belonged entirely to me. I had walked away from a family that never saw my worth. And now I was exactly where I was meant to be. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A new message. "Unknown number. I see it now." "I'm sorry." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then, with a quiet laugh, I deleted the message and walked forward without looking back.